Salutations, friends and relations, 'tis I, your humble host, Doodleman149, and I welcome you back to the channel. Today we have yet another viewer variants video, and in this series, for those of you who may not know, I rate viewer suggested builds on their usefulness in core domination, ground war, and warzone. This is how I gauge my ratings. Some of them can be a little vague, but I'm sure you all get the idea. And we have another Kacbor recommendation on the docket for today, with his suggestion for an AS VAL build. This honestly looks just like a very generic AS VAL build, but I'll reserve my initial feelings until I've actually tested this out. If any of you like this content, dropping a like really helps the YouTube shadow government to know what videos to recommend. And if you don't want to miss more fantastic content from the finest little YouTube channel you've ever seen, then subscribing is the best way to keep up to date with my uploads. Enough begging for subscribers though, let's get to why you're here. For Kacbor's AS VAL build, we have what he calls the Whisper. The Whisper begins in the barrel section with a 200mm OSA barrel to boost damage range and bullet velocity while costing us ADS speed. The Stavel Skeleton stock boosts our ADS and strafe speed while making our aim less steady. The Stipple Grip Tape boosts our ADS speed even further while also reducing our sprint to fire time. 30-round magazines increase our ammo by 50% by giving up mobility. And the Merc foregrip finishes this build off for boosted recoil and hipfire control while again costing us mobility. As expected, this close-range beast of a weapon is a very solid, dependable choice for core domination. The fact that the AS VAL is already suppressed means that I didn't have to throw on a boring monolithic suppressor for the 100th time. However, I still basically do that with the OSA barrel. In typical Kacbor fashion, ADS speed is king, so the Skeleton stock and the Stipple Grip Tape both do a good job of boosting this stat while sacrificing a good bit of aiming stability. Something that I don't really feel affects this weapon all that much. The power and rate of fire of this weapon means that while you can statistically get as many as 10 kills per magazine, you'll be needing to reload far more often than that. In that case, I definitely would have gone with sleight of hand over the Stipple Grip Tape, but that's just from my personal experiences. I was surprised how much I didn't hate the irons on here. I feel like I remember disliking them for some reason, but as I stated before, this weapon is great for core domination. For core domination, Kacbor's Whisper gets itself an 8 out of 10. Ground War was definitely where I expected this build to falter the most, and I was for once correct. Now, this has nothing to do with the build itself per se. It's more that the AS VAL isn't great over range. It has a lot of power and its range isn't statistically bad, it's honestly just the recoil of the weapon that makes it harder to handle when fighting over spaces at medium ranges. This could certainly be because I play on console though. I'm sure managing literally all vertical recoil on a mouse is a breeze. The Merc foregrip does its best to help with recoil, but it has a hard go of it against the kick of the AS VAL. The extended mags are a good choice here, as those extra 10 bullets will probably save you in a number of fights, especially if some shots miss. My turtle build from my AS VAL Gun Workshop video is probably a better AS VAL build for Warzone, so I'll leave the link to that in the description below for you to judge for yourselves. For Ground War, this AS VAL build earns itself a 5 out of 10. Now, as we load into Plunder, Freaky Haircut was going on about how the AS VAL got nerfed and that it was terrible now, this and that, just basically giving me really low expectations for how this weapon would work. I haven't checked any patch notes since Season 4 ended because I'm beyond done with this game, and Battlefield 4 is my main military shooter. I'm way happier about that too. However, as we got into the match and started fighting some people, I was absolutely erasing people from my screen. The VAL seems as strong as ever, so I'm not entirely sure what they nerfed on it up close, but no one stood a chance, and I was killing it during the one match I used this in. The Merc foregrip came in handy here, as not only was my recoil helped slightly, but my hipfire was also tightened, which 1000% saved me on at least one occasion I can think of. Those 30-round magazines are also definitely a must here. The Skeleton stock was great for strafing, and the OSA barrel gave me a healthy range boost. I still feel that the most replaceable option on here is the Stipple Grip Tape, but I'm sure that even helped when I was running and gunning with this build. This AS VAL racks up an 8 out of 10 for Warzone and Plunder. For as much as I'm not a big fan of the AS VAL, because I feel like it's definitely a try-hard weapon, which is odd because I'm a super sweat, just ask any of my buddies, I really like the Whisper. Despite it having the same name as my close-range kilo build from my Gun Workshop video on that, this build was very strong. It has a healthy boost of range thanks to the OSA barrel. The weapon is always suppressed, so that's a great feature for a stealth build. The Skeleton stock and the Stipple Grip Tape made aggressive play much easier. The 30-round magazines were a huge help in Ground War and Warzone, and I can definitely see the argument for the Merc foregrip being the best overall foregrip for the VAL. Overall, this build was a lot of fun to use. There wasn't really a time where I felt I was getting killed because my gun was bad, rather it's more me going from the slower Battlefield 4 to the faster paced Modern Warfare. For a final rating, Kacbor's Whisper AS VAL build gets itself a 7 out of 10. I'm really glad I got to test this build out. Kacbor's builds are always easy to spot because they focus a lot on ADS speed, and that's something that typically works in my favor given the style of play I typically adopt. So what did you all think of the Whisper? Does it seem like an AS VAL build you would like to run? Is the weapon simply not for you? Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you think I did a good job today, a like is always appreciated, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an upload. I would say I'd like to play a game or two with you, Kacbor, just to see how you handle your builds, but that's unlikely to happen given how little time I dedicate to Modern Warfare anymore. Perhaps in October, when Battlefield 2042 comes out, we can get a game in then. Until then, I've been your friendly neighborhood Doodleman149. You've all been awesome, and I will see you later.